The province of British Columbia has gone off the deep end to get your children hooked on drugs. Yes, I'm serious. Let's get into it.
Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. I was going to leave this video for later, but it's something I think needs to come out now. Something that's very alarming. Something that, honestly, at a time where I thought things couldn't get any worse, the British Columbia government turns around and, well, they've definitely jumped the shark on this one, as they are planning to issue a safer supply of fentanyl to minors. Yes, I am 100% accurate on that and true. I couldn't believe it myself when I had seen it. This is appalling. And if you follow what's going on in British Columbia right now, well, it seems to be kind of a free drug state. You've seen that after the legalization of marijuana comes British Columbia talking about things like safe injection sites and then moving towards making hard drugs legal, which if you followed documentaries like is it Aaron Gunn who had the documentary about Canada's dying, and it shows a lot about Hastings and areas of Vancouver where tent cities and drug addiction has become a major issue for the province of British Columbia. Well, now they're talking about giving a safer supply of fentanyl to minors. The worst part about it, parents are not going to have a say. This is alarming. I can tell you right now that if I was in British Columbia, I'd be packing up and moving. I'd be getting out of there. I would not want these sick government individuals having their hands on my children. We're gonna get into the article here, coming from the National Post. And again, guys, I don't like talking about these things. Boy, I wish we could talk about something fun for once. I wish we could talk about happier days. But this is the world we're living in right now. I remember during lockdowns, Manitoba coming out with their health policies stating that children 11 and under, or 11 and over, sorry, were allowed to get the hokey pokey without parental consent. That schools were told they could not. They were under no obligation to inform parents. This is alarming. This is very similar to that in terms of just how alarming it is. BC plans to give safer supply fentanyls to minors and parents won't have a say. No minimum age listed in protocols for providing youth with taxpayer-funded recreational fentanyl. I've never been one to advocate for any kind of violence. I've never been one to say, hey, go protest outside of a politician's home or make their life a living hell. We should be at this point. We should all be getting loud about this, because if you think this is going to stop in British Columbia, it's not. I'll be giving my take on what I think this is at the end, but let's go over the article. This is a long one, ladies and gentlemen. So again, I want to make sure that we get. Usually, I'll break down an article. I'm going to go through this one thoroughly because I want to make sure all the details are out, so people can't say I'm misrepresenting what's happening. I've seen ridiculous statements on Twitter of people saying, well, would you rather they go out and get the street fentanyl and get hooked and die on that? At least this is controlled. Give me a break. In what constitutes a clear trampling of parental rights, British Columbia recently authorized the provision of safer supply fentanyl to youth across the province, regardless if parents are informed of or agree to this measure. Provincial government has provided limited access to safer supply fentanyl since at least 2020, primarily through small-scale pilot projects. However, last August, the British Columbia Centre of Substance Use, an influential research organization, published protocols permitting doctors and nurses to prescribe safe fentanyl tablets to adults and minors. The organization confirmed to me in an email that it had been contracted by the province to produce these documents to further support clinicians prescribing safer supply across the province. While the BC government generally promotes its commitment to safer supply, it was oddly silent in this instance. I became aware of the new protocols only because two concerned addiction physicians contacted me shortly after their publication. This is alarming. Again, there's been zero media coverage on this development, and of course, because government paid prostitutes are told to leave it alone. Excluding a report I authored from the Macdonald Laurier Institute published last month, the provincial government has been able to ramp up the distribution of safe fentanyl, if you can call it that, with almost no public scrutiny. This is a shame, as the new protocols are full of red flags, including a jarring near absence of safeguarding measures when giving fentanyl to minors, to say nothing of the obvious ethical issues around underage consent. The only special requirements for underage parents is the use of, quote, two prescriber approval system, wherein as one prescriber contacts, sorry, I apologize, wherein one prescriber conducts the patient intake interview and another reviews the client's charts before signing off. Again, fentanyl's not something that you play around with. This is a highly addictive, life-altering and life-destroying drug. Number of addiction experts have criticized this as deeply inadequate. Dr. Lenora Regenstreif, a Hamilton-based addiction physician, said she found it hard to imagine that two doctors or nurses working in the same clinic would significantly challenge each other's prescribing decisions. The protocols do not provide a minimum age for when youth can receive recreational fentanyl. When I asked the BCCSU whether a minimum existed, they did not reply. Documents also make absolutely no mention of the rights and roles of parents of drug-addicted minors. In an email, they were asked, why is fentanyl protocols made no reference to parents? What would the organization say to parents who do not want their children to receive, quote, safe fentanyl? Whether the BCCSU believes that drug-addicted youth can provide informed consent regarding safe fentanyl, and what can parents do if they believe their children are being harmed by safer supply fentanyl? The BCCSU did not reply to these queries, despite generally answering other emails of mine over the past year. I wonder why not. That's very obvious. If the province is going to dole out recreational fentanyl to minors, it should probably have strong evidence backing this decision, but apparently it doesn't. The protocols clearly state that, to date, there is no evidence available supporting this intervention, safety data, or established best practices for when and how to provide it. In fact, a discussion of the absence of evidence supporting the approach is actually required for securing informed consent from patients. It seems that parents will actually be powerless. That word troubles me. Powerless to stop the government from supplying their children with fentanyl. A safer supply technically counts as a healthcare intervention, and youth have substantial control over their own medical decisions in Canada. I'm going to say something right now that, whether you like it or not, I'm sorry, this is my opinion. As a teenager, I thought I knew everything about the world. I still kind of act like I know everything, but I'll happily admit that I don't. As a 17-year-old young man, I was not properly informed enough to decide what was best for my body or what was best for me. I relied on the advice from a medical professional, i.e. my doctor. I would listen to what my parents had to say, and we would do our due diligence and research before engaging in any form of medical treatment. This is something that people usually want to know about. What am I taking? What are the side effects? How is this going to affect my day-to-day life? Is this addictive? All questions that should be asked around fentanyl. While some provinces set a minimum age, typically between 14 and 16 years old, for when minors can make such decisions, British Columbia has no minimum and relies instead on a fluid idea of capability. I'd love to see their definition of what capability is. Youth in the provinces are considered capable if they understand what a medical intervention involves and why it is needed and the risks and benefits. That's not a definition. That's just saying if they understand the pros and cons of what they're taking, they can shove it in their mouth. That doesn't mean anything. I mean, how many kids do you know, hey, Johnny does this, you should do it too? Or you get what I'm saying? Like, hey, everybody else was doing it, I just jumped on board. There's so much peer pressure in the school system. Fentanyl, again, we're not talking about kids stealing a beer from dad's fridge and going to a party. We're talking about hardcore, highly addictive um, drugs, narcotics. It's hard to imagine any scenario where a drug addicted minor would be capable of providing informed consent for safer supply fentanyl, given that addiction hijacks the brain and inhibits rational decision making. While adults have extensive rights to personal self determination, which permits them to make impaired or self destructive decisions if they so choose, it's hard to see why the same freedom should be extended to youth when it comes to using hard drugs. It's true that many drug addicted youth are in foster care or estranged from their parents, and that for them, securing parental consent is near impossible. That's not an excuse. What they should be doing for these kids, and if that is in fact the statistic, these kids are taking drugs. The question should be asked is why are they taking drugs? Well, because they're living a life of trauma. They're living a life of hurt, a life of confusion, a life of depression. So they're turning to substances that make them forget their problems. They're making them forget what they're going through. This is called a coping mechanism. This is not something that's long term or should be long term, if ever used. Anytime I hear somebody saying, you know, I lost a loved one, so I started drinking, that's not an excuse. Or I got a divorce, so I started, smoking pot more often, or whatever the excuse is. There's no excuse to start harming your body because you're going through a rough time. Now, what I'm saying is that if it's kids in the foster system, if it's kids that really are estranged from their parents or having issues, what the province should be paying for are counselors and therapists to sit and talk with these individuals, straighten their lives out, put them on the right track. You ever remember the say no to drugs, the war on drugs in the 80s and 90s? You ever remember everywhere you went, like there were PSAs, like Pee Wee Herman going, "This is your brain on crack," like with the boiled egg in the pan. I just, this is where I don't understand that a Looney Tunes province like this would condone, well, if these kids really just want to take drugs, just give them to them. Unbelievable. As parents are often a youth's greatest asset for recovery, any safer supply system that undermines child parent relationships is harmful. In a sad twist, the same laws that allow government to give recreational fentanyl to kids without parental consent also prohibit parents from sending their children to involuntary addiction treatment. So you're not even allowed to get help for your kids if you're saying, please, keep my children alive. The government won't help you, in other words, force your kid to get clean, but they will give them unlimited safe drugs against your will. That's disgusting. As I argued in my MLI report, by reframing the provision of unlimited recreational fentanyl as Medicare, the provincial government, may inadvertently turn itself into the parent's worst nightmare, an unstoppable drug dealer with endless supply and unrestricted access to their child. While Health Canada confirmed to me in an email that it did not play a role in the development of these protocols, it did not respond to a follow-up email when I asked if the federal government, had any objections to giving recreational fentanyl to minors. Here's the problem I have with this. Here's the problem everybody should have with this. This is population control. That's what I think this is. I think it's getting people, when we talk about things like universal basic income, when we talk about the legalization of hard drugs, and I'm not talking about marijuana, I'm talking about the legalization of crack, cocaine. You've got retailers in Vancouver that are legally allowed to sell government monitored street drugs. I mean, you're forming a dependency. Universal basic income does the same thing. This is what the government wants. They want population control, and they want you to be so dependent on them that you have no other answer, that you'll do exactly what they say when they say it. You call me a tinfoil hat wearing psychopath. I don't care. I think that that's what is being played here. They want our youth to be addicted, lazy, shiftless, not want to do anything with their lives, or dead. And this is by far the most appalling thing I have seen a government do to date. In terms of the medical industry, next to treatments that went on during a pandemic, I'll say, because again, censors don't want me talking about those things. This should scare the shit out of every parent or any person with a rational level of thought. If this were to expand to other provinces, this would be a nightmare. This is what's killing our kids. You look at things like MAID, and by March, you're going to be allowed to go and get MAID if you just say, "Well, I'm sad, I'm depressed." How many kids, or I shouldn't say kids because we're not kids now, but how many adults watching this show had an experience as a teenager where um, you broke up with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and all of a sudden it's, oh, my life sucks, oh, I'm depressed, oh, I'm sad, I'm just gonna go drink my face off, or I'm gonna go make some stupid decisions. Could you imagine once MAID is registered that if you're just simply depressed, that doctors aren't allowed to question it, they're just supposed to take your signature on a piece of paper and move forward with a procedure? How many people are going to line up for this procedure? How many youth that think the world is crumbling because their parents told them no to getting the newest iPhone, or that their significant other has decided they're going to move on with their lives at the age of 16, or that they can't borrow dad's car? I, what's gonna happen to our youth? What's going to happen moving forward? Free fentanyl isn't the answer, I can tell you that. And anybody in British Columbia that has access to reach out to their MLAs, do it. Their MPs, anybody. Voice your outrage. I've seen posts online saying, hey, maybe it's time to pack up and move out of BC. No, this is what you voted for, so deal with it. Deal with it. Because if you're leaving BC and then coming to Alberta or Manitoba or Saskatchewan and saying, we want these things just as much as we wanted them in BC, get out. We don't want you here. We don't want you bringing your woke ideologies to our other provinces. Fix your own mess at home before you pack up and leave. And I mean that in the nicest way possible, because I know there's people that probably live in places like British Columbia and say, I've just had enough and I didn't vote for this. Yeah, pack up and leave, but demand more of your politicians. This is where I say it's so important to hold their feet to the fire and say, if you don't do this, if you don't fix this, you're going to be out of a job. And I will form a strong backing of people that will make sure that nobody votes in favor of you in the next election, that you won't even get your pension. Your days are numbered if you're going to give hard drugs to our kids or someone else's children. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. I know this is a long video. Sorry if I'm getting a little overrun on this video. I find this disturbing. As a father of 3, I can tell you right now, I feel a great swell of pity for the person who seems to think they have authority over myself or my wife when it comes to my children, and I would happily go to jail in order to keep my kids safe. But let me know what you guys think. This is utterly disgusting. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure as you're clicking that button to hit the bell for notifications and come back. Join us here on the channel for regularly posted content throughout the week, as well as our live streams on Sunday, where we do the weekly wrap and go over everything that's happened in this past week, everything coming up in the week ahead, and a little bit of back and forth with the community. I always look forward to what you guys have to say there. We're definitely going to be talking about this coming Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time here on the channel. I'm speechless. Aside from that, after 18 minutes of rambling, I'm speechless. And I hope you guys got something out of this video. I usually say I hope you enjoyed it, but there's nothing to enjoy from this. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.